Some roads look ordinary right up until the moment they aren't. A freeway in the early hours of the morning, nearly empty. The kind of quiet that makes a driver feel like they have the city to themselves. A stoplight on a Wednesday evening in the middle of normal traffic. A stretch of coastal highway on a clear afternoon with nothing to suggest the day was about to end for anyone. Dashcams don't editorialize. They don't look away. They record what happens with the same indifference the road itself shows. And sometimes what they capture becomes evidence, becomes news, becomes a question that families carry for the rest of their lives. The footage doesn't explain anything. It only shows. And what it shows is how fast the line between an ordinary drive and a catastrophe can disappear. Here are 5 of the most disturbing dashcam deaths ever caught on camera. It was just after 4 in the morning on June 26, 2023. The northbound 710 freeway in Long Beach was nearly empty. The kind of quiet that belongs to the hours before the city wakes up. A young woman named Tati, a barista on her way to an early shift, had her dashcam running as she moved through the darkness at around 60 miles per hour. Then, something passed her. A Hyundai Sonata blew by in the fast lane, moving so fast it barely registered before it was gone. Tati noticed it immediately. I was like, oh wow, they're going pretty fast, she later told reporters. In the dash cam footage, the car is visible for only a few seconds before it reaches the 91 freeway interchange. Then, the darkness ahead of her turns orange. The Sonata had struck a row of attenuators, the large safety barrels placed at freeway exits to absorb the force of a crash. The car didn't slow before impact. It hit the barrier at high speed, became airborne, flipped, and caught fire. The flames were visible from a distance. Tati said the area was dark, and she didn't see much at first, only the fire starting up ahead of her. I was pretty scared for the people in that car, she said. I didn't realize there were so many people. There were 6. The car was designed to seat 5. 5 of the 6 were gone before emergency crews arrived. 1 survived with serious injuries. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office identified 2 victims the same day, George Dobbs and Aria Slimaker, both 15 years old, both from Long Beach. They were best friends, described by family as being like brother and sister. An 18-year-old named Angel Sextos was identified the following day. The identities of the other 2 victims were not released publicly. Not everyone in the car had been wearing a seatbelt. At least 1 person was ejected. 5 were trapped inside the burning wreckage. Araya's uncle, Kevin Guerrero, spoke to reporters in the days after. She was taken from us so young, he said. She didn't even make it to her 16th birthday. The family still didn't fully understand why the teenagers were out at that hour, and Guerrero said they were trying to make sense of something that didn't offer easy answers. It's not natural for a parent to have to bury their kid, he said. No one should ever have to go through that pain. California Highway Patrol investigators said the crash appeared to involve only the 1 vehicle. They didn't publicly name a driver or confirm whether drugs or alcohol played a role. The cause remained under investigation. The dashcam footage Tati captured was later shared with Telemundo 52 and KTLA. It shows the Sonata in the distance, moving at a speed that looks wrong even from far away, and then the burst of light where the car meets the barrier. The northbound lanes of the 710 freeway were closed for roughly 6 hours. What the footage can't show is what was happening inside that car, who was driving, why they were going so fast, whether anyone understood what was coming before it arrived. Those questions stayed open. 5 people were gone before the sun came up. 2 of them were 15 years old, out on a freeway in the middle of the night, on a road that offered no warning and gave back nothing. The dash cam recorded the last few seconds of the Sonata's trajectory, and then there was only fire. It was just after 6 in the evening on April 16, 2025, at the intersection of Market Street and 6th Street in Riverside. The light was still good. Traffic was moving the way it does on a Wednesday, steadily, without any particular urgency. A Honda Civic sat at a stoplight. Its driver, a 37-year-old man named Christian Barrigan. He was on his way to his family's restaurant to fill in for a sick coworker, doing what he did, showing up when someone needed him. Someone nearby had a dashcam. Someone else had a phone aimed at their rearview mirror. In the footage, a black Dodge Charger appears without any warning, filling the mirror from nowhere. It's moving at a speed that doesn't belong in city traffic, not slowing, not adjusting, not acknowledging the intersection at all. It hits the Honda Civic with enough force to send the smaller car spinning out of its lane and directly into oncoming traffic. The chain reaction injured 5 more people. Christian Berrigan didn't survive. Riverside police identified the driver of the Charger as 19-year-old Isaiah Villalba. Officers located him near the scene. When they moved to take him into custody, he ran. He fought back with enough force that officers used a taser to bring him down. His booking photo showed him still wearing a hospital gown. Officer Ryan Railsback of the Riverside Police Department told reporters that Villalba had appeared to be driving far too fast for conditions and showed no concern for anyone else on the road. Investigators believed drugs or alcohol may have been a factor. Villalba was charged with murder, felony hit and run, felony suspicion of being under the influence of drugs, and resisting arrest using violence. He was held on a $1 million bond, with his arraignment scheduled for the following day. The dashcam and cell phone videos appeared on Instagram before investigators had collected them. Police put out a public request for anyone who had witnessed the Charger driving erratically before the crash to come forward, wanting to understand where the car had been and how it had been moving before it reached that intersection. Christian Berrigan had operated his family's Mr. Taco restaurant on Main Street in Riverside alongside his relatives. His brother told reporters he had been heading there that evening to cover for someone who couldn't make it in, the kind of thing families do without needing to be asked. His family released a statement. "Our family is heartbroken and devastated by the loss of our beloved brother. Those who knew him described him as a friend of the community, someone who was present, who contributed, who could be counted on." None of that mattered to whatever was happening inside the Charger. What makes this footage hard to sit with is how unremarkable the scene looks in the seconds before impact. A normal city intersection on a weekday evening. Cars stopped at a light. A man on his way to work. There's nothing in the frame that signals what's about to come from outside it. Then, the mirror fills with the Charger, and the collision is already happening before anyone on screen has time to react. The videos became part of the police investigation. They documented the crash with a precision that left investigators very little to interpret. No braking, no swerving, no attempt to slow down before hitting a car full stop at a red light. Christian Berrigan was 37 years old. He was at a stoplight, headed to a place his family built, doing the ordinary work of an ordinary evening. The road at Market Street and 6th Street gave him no warning, and the Charger that crossed into his life gave him no chance. The dash cam footage from outside the 99 Ranch Market in Westwood didn't come from another driver passing by. It came from a camera mounted near the storefront itself, fixed in place, recording the ordinary foot traffic of a grocery store entrance the way those cameras always do, expecting nothing. What it captured was a vehicle crossing the sidewalk and driving directly into the building. The driver was 92 years old. The footage showed the car accelerating rather than slowing, crossing the pedestrian space in front of the entrance and striking the storefront with enough force to trap people inside. 2 store employees were killed. One of them was identified as 42-year-old Darius Renoj. What the footage could not answer, and what investigators worked to determine afterward, was what happened in the seconds before the car moved toward the building. Whether there was a medical event, whether the driver pressed the wrong pedal and didn't know it, whether something failed in the car itself. Those questions opened with the investigation that followed. The driver was elderly, the day was ordinary, the parking lot was full, and the only thing the footage could speak to with certainty was the trajectory of the vehicle once it began moving toward the entrance. Crashes of this kind follow a pattern that safety researchers and first responders have seen before. A driver approaches what should be a stop, intends to brake, and instead the car accelerates. The pedal under the foot is the wrong one, but the signal from the brain doesn't register the error. The car responds to what the foot is doing, not what the mind intended. The building in its path doesn't yield. For the people inside, none of the physics is visible or audible until the wall in front of them suddenly isn't there anymore. For the employees working inside the 99 Ranch Market that day, there was no warning. The entrance offered no protection. One moment the store was open and occupied, and functioning the way it had been every other day. The next, a car was inside it. Darius Renosh was 42 years old. The two victims were employees who had arrived at work that day without any reason to treat it differently from any other shift. A grocery store is not a place people think of as dangerous. The parking lot out front, the sliding doors, the produce section just inside, none of it reads as precarious. That's part of what makes the footage so unsettling when it circulates. The setting is completely familiar right up until it isn't. The gap between what the camera shows in one frame and what it shows in the next is almost nothing. There's no slow approach, no visible struggle for control, no moment where the danger is legible before it arrives. The car simply enters the frame moving in the wrong direction, and then it's inside the building. That speed, that absence of any transition from normal to catastrophic, is what caused the footage to spread widely once it was made public. But the camera added to the record was a measure of how little time there was, not a dramatic measure with tension building across a long sequence. Just the footage itself and the gap between frames, and the realization that nothing in between could have changed what happened. The investigation continued in the weeks that followed, focusing on the seconds before the car crossed the sidewalk and on the question of why an elderly driver had accelerated rather than slowed. Two people who had gone to work that morning were gone, recorded in their final moments by a camera that had been pointed at an entrance no one expected to become a point of impact. It was just before 10 in the evening on March 18, 2018, on a 4-lane stretch of Mill Avenue in Tempe, Arizona. The road was dry, traffic was light. A modified Volvo XC90 was moving north through the warm desert night at about 39 miles per hour, but the person in the driver's seat was not, in any operational sense, driving it. The vehicle was an Uber self-driving prototype operating in autonomous mode. The driver, 44-year-old Rafaela Vasquez, was a safety operator whose job was to monitor the road and intervene if the system failed. Crossing the same 4-lane road in the dark, walking her bicycle, was Elaine Hertzberg. She was 49 years old. The intersection she was crossing was not at a crosswalk. She had reached the center median and started across the second pair of lanes when the Volvo emerged from the shadow ahead of her. The Dashcam in this case was two cameras at once. One faced forward, recording the road exactly as the autonomous system saw it. The other faced inward, recording Vasquez in the driver's seat. Both ran continuously. Both became evidence. What the forward-facing camera showed was Hertzberg appearing in the headlights with the bicycle, mid-crossing, fully visible for several seconds before impact. The Volvo did not slow. The system did not signal. The car struck her at 39 miles per hour and continued forward briefly before coming to a stop. She was thrown to the pavement and pinned beneath the car. She was transported to a hospital and pronounced dead from her injuries. What the inward-facing camera showed was Vasquez looking down repeatedly in the seconds before the collision. Her head was angled toward her lap. Her eyes were not on the road. In the final 2 seconds before impact, she looked up. Her face changed. The footage captured the exact moment her recognition arrived, followed by the impact itself. She had no time to brake or steer. Police investigators determined that Vasquez had been streaming a television program on her phone in the moments before the crash. The episode she was watching was confirmed. The National Transportation Safety Board's review of the Uber system found that the autonomous software had detected Hertzberg roughly 6 seconds before impact, but had failed to classify her correctly. The system cycled through identifying her as an unknown object, then a vehicle, then a bicycle, never resolving the classification in time to brake. Uber had also disabled the Volvo's factory automatic emergency braking system during autonomous operation, on the assumption that the human safety driver would intervene if needed. Vasquez was charged with negligent homicide in 2020. She pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of endangerment in 2023 and was sentenced to 3 years of supervised probation. Uber settled with Hertzberg's family privately, and suspended its autonomous testing program in Arizona. The case became a reference point in the regulation of self-driving vehicles. What the two cameras recorded that night was not just the death of a pedestrian. It was the simultaneous failure of a software system to see her and the human in the seat who was supposed to catch the system's mistakes. Both cameras had to be running for the investigation to reconstruct what had happened. Neither could see what the other did. Elaine Hertzberg was the first pedestrian killed by an autonomous vehicle in the United States. The footage from inside that Volvo continues to circulate in policy discussions, courtrooms, and engineering reviews. She was 49 years old. She was crossing a road with a bicycle. The car that struck her was supposed to be able to see her, and the person who was supposed to be watching was not. What made the Hertzberg case structurally different from every other dashcam death is that the recording was not incidental. The cameras inside that Volvo were not the personal equipment of a private driver who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were a designed component of an autonomous testing program, running for the explicit purpose of documenting how the system performed. The footage was always going to be examined by engineers, regulators, and lawyers, regardless of what happened that night. The crash made the audience larger, but the cameras were already serving exactly the function they had been installed to serve. What the recordings produced was a level of forensic clarity that ordinary crash investigations almost never have. The investigators did not have to reconstruct what the driver had seen. They could watch her seeing it or failing to in real time. They did not have to model how the autonomous system had perceived the road. They had the perception logs the car had generated at the moment of impact. Few fatal collisions have ever been documented this completely. Few have ever raised this many questions at once. The dash cam in this case wasn't mounted on the dashboard of a passing car. It was fixed inside the vehicle where everything happened, pointed at the front seat, recording the faces of the people sitting there. And when prosecutors brought that footage into a Northern Virginia courtroom, the room went quiet. The defendant was Mustafa Al-Jazairi. The woman in the passenger seat was Dorothy Fontaine. Her 5-year-old daughter was also in the car. Prosecutors said the couple had been arguing. The fight had started earlier that day, a dispute over a former boyfriend, and it was still going when the car reached an intersection. The dashcam recorded no audio, but the footage showed what spoken words couldn't convey on their own. Prosecutors told the court that the facial expressions visible in the footage made clear the argument was still active, still escalating, still unresolved, right up to the moment the car turned left into oncoming traffic. No braking, no skid marks. The vehicle moved into the wrong lane and kept going until it met an oncoming car head-on. Dorothy Fontaine and her daughter were killed. Al-Jazairi survived. The footage showed Dorothy Fontaine's face in the seconds before the collision. Prosecutors described her expression as terror. She could see what the car was about to do. She braced. The camera recorded her doing it, and it recorded everything that came after. And it kept running because that's what cameras do. Al-Jazairi faced 2 counts of second-degree murder. Prosecutors argued the crash was deliberate, an act of violence committed in the middle of a domestic argument. The defense countered that it was a panic response, a catastrophic mistake by someone who was flustered and overwhelmed, not a man who had made a decision to harm anyone. Defense attorney Blake Weiner put it this way in court. They have a piece of video from one instance where it appears my client was trying to pass a vehicle and then, in a moment of panic, made a bad decision, an incorrect decision, because he was flustered and panicked. A police investigator who sat down with Al-Jazairi 2 days after the crash walked him through what the footage showed. No skid marks, no attempt to brake, the car simply moving into the oncoming lane and staying there. I'm trying to figure out why, the investigator said. Al-Jazairi's answer, I don't know. Why would I do that? A judge granted Al-Jazairi a $5,000 bond, but placed a hold on the order, while prosecutors pursued an appeal. He had already been held for more than a year by that point. His family kept watch outside the courthouse throughout, insisting he was innocent. His brother Mohammed told reporters, if my brother had a drop of guilt, we would not be here for him. The trial was scheduled for December 2nd. What separates this footage from the others in this account is what it captured and where the camera was positioned. Most dash cam recordings place the viewer at a distance. A car moving wrong in the frame, an impact, the aftermath. The people inside those cars remain faceless, their final moments inferred from physics and wreckage. This footage was different. It recorded a face. A woman watching the road become something it was never supposed to be, with no way to stop it and no time left to try. Whether Al Jazairi drove into traffic deliberately or, in a moment of total panic, Dorothy Fontaine and her daughter were gone. A mother and a 5-year-old child, recorded in their last seconds by a camera neither of them chose, in a car that turned left when it should have gone straight. A dashcam doesn't know what it's recording. It runs the same on an ordinary afternoon as it does on the last day of someone's life. The footage from these 5 cases reached courtrooms and news broadcasts and public memory not because anyone planned it that way, but because the cameras were running when everything changed. For the families left behind, the recordings don't answer the questions that matter most. They only confirm what happened. And sometimes that's the most haunting thing a camera can do.